You know that saying like, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness? I say don't ask for either. Don't ask for shit. Just show what you are worth with what you make. Don't ask for nothing. I don't need anyone's approval. I just show you what I do and you make your judgment based off of that. I don't talk.
So we're not going to reference the stuff that we've done.
No, we're definitely going to talk about it. I guess I was just joking more so that I very much know who you are, but for the sake of audio.
You'll ask me stuff that you know the answers to,
yeah,
right? Okay.
Yeah, but starting out, just who are you? What do you do? What's this? Where are we right now?
Okay. I am Jeff Staple. I'm the founder of Staple Design, which does a couple of different things. It has Staple Pigeon, which is a streetwear apparel line. And then we have a creative agency called Staple Design. Then we also have a lot of retail operations. I used to have a store called Read Space. And then on top of those three things, I also do a lot of talks and mentoring. And I'm a podcaster too. I have a podcast. It's called The Business of Hype. It's basically talking to creative entrepreneurs about how they handle their actual business and finances and stuff.
So when we first met, I told you about how I found you, which was on a podcast like 5 years ago. The podcast ultimately was a reason I sort of picked up my whole life and moved from Florida to New York.
You know when you fly on a plane and then they say like when there's lack of oxygen, like the mask comes down?
Yeah.
What do they always say?
They always say put your mask on first.
Exactly. I don't care if your kid's there or your infant baby. If you don't put that mask on yourself first, you can't do shit for other people because you will be passed out.
Do you think there was a moment that you can look back on that you realized you had to go fully all in on yourself before you could make anyone else happy?
There were two instances. One of them was 4 years into starting Staple. I went on a snowboard trip and almost lost my life. I was in the Andes in South America, which is pretty extreme. It's like 19,000 foot elevation. And I was with a pack of 8 people and I got lost on my own by myself. And I ended up lost for 8 hours in like what essentially is the Sahara Desert of snow. It's just white out forever. Like every which way you look, it's white. You don't even know where the ground or the sky is. I was just caught in like a blizzard by myself in the Andes with just a snowboard. If I didn't get rescued that evening, I would have died for sure. Literally dug a grave for myself. Like I dug a hole and laid in it, like thinking like this is it. Got rescued, went back to New York, sat at my desk and it's like, hey bro, what's up? Hey, you're back. So what, you know, there's a deadline for this thing and like, hey, what's going on with this meeting? And I'm just like, I just like pulled myself out of my own grave. You don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. Nothing is guaranteed. And so like within reason, you should try to live every day like it is your last. So I have a bike that's on permanent display here.
How did this come together?
I collaborated with Honda. I had the stock version of this, so then I extended it. I wanted 2 people to be able to sit on it. Put in a Japanese exhaust that you can see on that side.
I know like it started in design. Do you still consider yourself like a designer at the core? Like what do you think you are at this point with so many different operations running?
At the core, I think I'm still a designer, definitely. I know this because I can't turn off looking at the world as a creative and a designer. A lot of my life has morphed into being like a business person. I have to turn that switch on. Like I have to get into business mode or like finance mode, you know? Whereas like if I'm on vacation, I'm still looking at like the kerning of the hotel logo that I'm staying at, you know? Like I still think like a designer. And I'm happy that, you know, it's still rooted in that craft.
Are you still like getting your hands dirty like in the design process as much as you can?
As much as I can and selectively, which is fun. Because, you know, if you have a clothing line and you're making 500 styles a year, you know, inevitably not all 500 are going to be ones that like really resonate directly with me, but I get to work on the ones that really resonate with me. Same with the clients that we have at Staple Design. You know, I try to see and touch everything, but I get to really sink in my teeth on like the ones that like I'm very passionate about. Retail's the same, you know, like I really love doing activations and like physical in real life things at a retail store. I don't really love filling out purchase orders and making sure brands like invoices are paid up and stuff like that. Like, I want them to be paid, I just don't like, doing the paperwork of it. I'm able to like sort of get to a point where I can bring in teams to help me do things that like I don't want to do, And that comes off a little bit like elitist, like, oh, I'm not going to do that, so I'm just going to hire a team. But I think more people should think that way. Like, they should not do things that don't make them feel good. Like, everyone inherently knows what they like to do and what they don't like to do. Even if they can't write it down on a piece of paper, they know the feeling of like when something is fun and joyful and when something's not. And I think the secret to happiness in your life should just be slowly but surely eliminating those things that you don't like to do. Society tries to put like selfishness on people who eliminate things that they don't want to do, but it's not. It's actually like self-care. Yeah. I had investors that I was talking to tell me, you should focus on one or the other. Like, you got your eye off the apparel game if you're doing some client's job, Because there's only so many hours. You have 3 people, 40 hours a week. You only have so many hours. And if you're spending half of that on this project, who's working on the clothing line? Who's shipping orders? You know what I mean? And people tried to get me to like give up on one or the other. Yeah. I was stupid and I didn't believe them. If I talked to like factory people or like garment people, they were like, stop with the design stuff because you own a clothing brand, you own an IP that you can really blossom and turn into like $100 million thing. All this other shit you're doing, it's quick checks, but you're not getting equity. But then on the flip side, my accountant and my financial advisor was always like, the clothing line is not making you money. Shut that shit down. Focus everything on design and you will be a rich man. Yeah. And I was like, but clothing is dope.
I told myself, like from the second I reached out to you, that I wasn't going to ask a question about the Pigeon Dog. Okay.
There's a footwear frenzy going on in the city right now. A special sneaker made just for New York is in such high demand, people are fighting to own a pair of these things.
Kids were piled up against the fence like it was a soccer game. I was actually fearful at times for, the safety of the people here,
Everyone's heard the Pigeon Dunk story, right? I'm curious what happened after that.
I can't tell you what happened the day after the Pigeon Dunk. The Pigeon Dunk was not an overnight smash hit success.
When nearly 100 self-proclaimed sneakerheads got into a shoving match as they waited for the doors to open and the chance to buy one of only 20 pairs of pigeons.
Trust me, I swear on my mother's life, I have never spent $1 of marketing to tell the pigeon story. It gets told by the culture. It's folklore. It's like, an orator telling like an old mythological story. It just keeps getting retold and retold. When you create something that means that much to any culture, whether it's music or street culture, sneaker culture, then you tend to get pigeonholed. I'm sorry, there's no other word for it. Oh, you're the guy that did that. And so that's it. So honestly, a lot of my effort in storytelling is spent proving to people that I'm not just the guy who made the Pigeon Dunk, It's a gift and a curse because overarchingly the process of trying to just show people what like I'm made of in a sense. There's definitely a chip on my shoulder when I hear people say like, you just did the Pigeon Dunk, like you did nothing else since then, And I have a chip on my shoulder, but it's also like, I've redirected the energy now back to myself to say, Jeff, you're not doing a good enough job educating these people on what you do. Like, you need to work harder to show the world that you're not just a guy that did the Pigeon Dunk. It's a great Jay-Z line. He says, I've got nothing but time. It's fine. Like, I could do this forever, So like, I'm in no rush.
Do you think about that? Like, what you think your legacy will be? Do you want to be remembered as like this guy who did everything? Like, what do you want attached to your name when you're gone? You ever thought about that?
I've thought about not thinking about it.
Okay.
But I haven't thought about what my legacy will be. I don't want to think about that. What I want to do is think about what Staple will mean to people when I'm gone. But I don't care about my, like, Jeff Staples' legacy in the industry. One of the things that I try to do is really make the work about the process of the work versus some arbitrary finish line of like, once I've done that, then everyone in the headlines will say, Jeff was known for this, that, and the third. Like, that's the two realities, right? It's like, one is like thinking about when you die, what your obituary would say. And then the other one is thinking about what you have to do at 4:25 p.m. today. Those are two very different things, right? And if you go back to my snowboarding accident, like, why think about the obituary header? Like that could come today. The headline could be written tonight, potentially. So you're gonna spend the next 30 years trying to craft this thing that like you don't know when or how it's gonna come. Almost every interview I do, they say like, what's the 5-year plan? What are you gonna do in 5 years? It's easy to fall into the trap of like thinking about planning the future and long-term outcomes. It's hard to just sit in the now. That's really hard to do. Because the now feels easy for people and the future feels challenging. It feels like hard, but actually being at rest with yourself in the now is really challenging and most people aren't there. And going back to the face mask on the plane thing, if you're not at rest now, I guarantee you will have a very hard time being at rest in 5 years too, you know? Yeah.